Welcome to the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen, covering the week that was in professional wrestling. And hello everybody, welcome once again to another edition of The Juice Box. I am Juice Springsteen here on this Saturday evening in November, where we are just days away from Full Gear. Next Saturday, 1 week away. We are 2 weeks away from the Survivor Series War Games show for WWE. We are a few days removed from AEW Blood and Guts. So we will be discussing all of that in a little bit more here in this week's episode. As always, before we dive into that, follow me on Twitter at JuicySteen, on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet. Subscribe to this show on YouTube at JuicySteen, and you can subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts via iTunes. Listen to it on Spotify and on Amazon Music. And like I said, if you listen to it on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts via iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It does help the show grow. Additionally, we've got the John Cena final match, Saturday night's main event, happening less than a month away. So that is also in the distance. We are very close to crowning who that man will be. We have a lot of intrigue with who's already been in the tournament, and we also have still one more entry that has not been announced that will happen in Madison Square Garden this Monday night. Looking forward to seeing who that will be as well. I have my thoughts, and I'm sure everybody's thoughts are similar, but we shall see. We'll be touching on all of that here in this program. So let's kick things off actually with AEW, where Blood and Guts took place this past week in Greensboro. This was a pretty damn unhinged show. I would wager the best episode of AEW Dynamite we've had all year, and that's because of the quality of every match. There were 3 matches on this show. The women's Blood and Guts match, the Falls Count Anywhere match between Powerhouse Hobbs and Hangman Adam Page, and the men's Blood and Guts match. And, I mean, my God, every match here, every moment here was amazing. Sky Blue getting color immediately. Incredible moment there visually. Mercedes Moné walking into the ring with all 12 of her belts and passing them out as weapons to her teammates was incredible. Timeless Toni Storm surrendering to save her partner Mina Shirakawa to end the match. All of it felt unique because it was the first women's Blood and Guts match, and all of the storyline pieces seemed to fall into place where it made sense. It said a lot about putting these 12 women in this match and having stories threaded throughout in a successful way to kind of add some more juice to a match that is going to get a lot of juice, a lot of color, especially in this match, specifically Blood and Guts. And I loved every minute of it. I felt that the women's match actually was a better match than the men's. Now, there will be pundits that will disagree. I know Dave Meltzer gave the men's Blood and Guts match 5 stars, and he gave the women's Blood and Guts match, I think, 4.5. So, differing opinions throughout, but wrestling is a subjective form of entertainment, and I love that fact. So, I felt that the women's match was the better of the two. Maybe that's a little bit of a bias towards it was their first go-round and it was so damn good. But, I still thought it was amazing as a standalone match regardless. And the men's match was just as good. So, no complaints by yours truly. I mean, this Falls Count Anywhere match in the middle of the show was interesting. Hangman and Powerhouse Hobbs having a brutal Falls Count Anywhere match. And we also got the setup now for the Hangman Adam Page Samoa Joe match at Full Gear for the AEW World title. It will be taking place in a solid steel cage, which I loved how they kind of set that in where, there was a brawl after the fact, the cage lowered, and Joe and the Ops were, taking liberties in there with Hangman. And after the dust cleared and Hangman kind of got the upper hand, he said, hey, you want to do this match again? You're going to have to do it in a steel cage. So we're going to get a steel cage match at Full Gear. It's somewhat bizarre that we're going to get a cage match 2 weeks after we've got the Blood and Guts match. But the Blood and Guts match is it's a separate type of match, so I really don't fault AEW for having a similar gimmick match coming in on a pay-per-view, especially for the World Championship. Like, I think the stakes and everything around that match differ it from your traditional, Blood and Guts match. So I think that it's fine in that regard. And we'll talk about Full Gear here in a moment. But Blood and Guts on the other half, the men, Darby Allin getting thrown through a flaming table off the top of the stage by Pac. Those two have a collision course for Full Gear. Mark Briscoe taking some crazy bumps. The thumbtacks, everything in this match was insane. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the brutal nail spot in the women's match, landing on the bed of nails. I want to say that was Chris Statlander who did that. That was brutal. And just so many interesting spots throughout both matches, and Pac being such a pivotal piece of that match, throwing Darby Allin off the top of the stage through a flaming table is just insane. What a crazy visual that was. Kyle O'Reilly getting the win, making Jon Moxley surrender, I thought was an intriguing choice. That's another loss from Moxley to Kyle O'Reilly, and he keeps, falling off and not really being able to get back in the good graces after he lost his AEW World title back at All In Texas in July. So as a whole, I really do feel that the Blood and Guts show for AEW, not only do I think it hit on all cylinders, but I also think that it really elevated the stories that were already being threaded throughout the show to further them, to get them ready for the pay-per-view. And with this type of huge show in the middle of the month, 2 weeks out of a pay-per-view, to have it be successful, and then, we got a pay-per-view in 2.5 weeks. I think AEW did a great job, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up FTR and Ricky Steamboat having their interaction in the middle of the ring here on this Blood and Guts show. And Tony Schiavone referenced the Clash of the Champions 17 show, where Ricky the Dragon Steamboat was the surprise tag team partner for Dustin Rhodes as they defeated Arn Anderson and Larry Zbyszko in November of 1991, which is one of my favorite wrestling shows of all time. It is featured in my episode that I did, I think, earlier this year, the 5 shows that defined me. And I just, it was really, really cool to hear him reference that match when I've seen that show numerous times. And it's just been awesome to anytime I get to revisit it. I've had the tape. I still have the tape. My dad recorded it from the live show in 91. And it was really cool to have that tape as one of the first tapes I got to watch. And for Tony Schiavone to reference that, I really think was an awesome piece of business, especially since Steamboat was there. FTR is very old school, very Arn Anderson, Larry Zbyszko, Tully Blanchard-esque. So all those things kind of synced up to a really cool moment for me personally. And to hear him reference that match, I thought was really cool. Of course, FTR disrespected Steamboat, and you're going to get FTR versus Brodito for the tag titles at Full Gear. a match that, of course, Brodito had a problem with how Steamboat was treated, so they gave them the business after that. And, of course, the match was already set up, but now it's got a little bit more zest to it. Let's get into the Full Gear preview here, as we will talk about it in more depth next week with the prediction show. We've got a pre-show with Boom and Doom, Big Boom AJ, QT Marshall taking on Roppongi Vice, Rocky Romero, Trent Beretta. And another pre-show match. This will be a $200,000 four-way tag. The Outrunners versus Big Bill and Brian Keith versus the Bang Bang Gang of Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson versus Max Caster and Anthony Bowens, no longer the Acclaimed. On the main show, we are getting Chris Statlander defending her AEW Women's World Title against Mercedes Moné. I'm sure that won't cause any sort of controversy. Hangman, of course, defends his AEW World Title against Samoa Joe in a steel cage match, which will be absolutely way more intriguing, considering we get the same match, but with a little bit of an elevated stake. And I think it gives a little bit of an outside chance that Hangman could lose. So I like that wrinkle. AEW World Tag Titles, FTR takes on Brodito, which I think could be the FTR title win, but we shall see. $1 million trios match, Kenny Omega, Jurassic Express taking on the Young Bucks, and Josh Alexander. Winners get the $1 million cash prize. I think that could steal the show. Kyle Fletcher takes on Mark Briscoe in a no DQ match for the AEW TNT title, where if Mark Briscoe loses, he will be forced to join the Don Callis family. Darby Allin takes on Pac in a singles match, which is a match I've been clamoring for since Moxley lost his world title and since Pac got reintroduced into the AEW fold. And we're going to get it. It took Darby being absolutely flung through a flaming table to get to this moment. And I'm looking forward to this match. These are two very rugged wrestlers in ring, and I'm excited to see how it plays out as we progress through the end of 2025. And of course, the Casino Gauntlet match for the inaugural AEW National Championship. And I do want to make this note. Tony Khan had an interview the other day and referenced that he did speak to Billy Corgan, owner of the NWA, and discussed, a little bit of everything in regards to the national title. The, national champion Mike Mondo having a problem, it would seem, with AEW not only having a national championship, but kind of referencing the lineage of the NWA version, when in reality it's a different lineage, and maybe they shouldn't have brought it up. But all the controversy surrounding that, which I brought up last week, seems to kind of have blown over, and now AEW is going to have their own lineage with this title, which I think was always the case, but they, I think, made a mistake of referencing the old lineage of the national championship for the NWA. So that is what it is, but that title will be held in the Casino Gauntlet match for that inaugural championship. We'll talk about more next week of who is involved in the match and who I think could win it, so we shall see how that will play. But Full Gear, always enjoy the November pay-per-views for AEW and WWE. It's a nice time to have them. I enjoy World's End, of course, as well at the end of the year. I always feel like that's a really cool show. So looking forward to Full Gear next week in New Jersey. I'm sure Andrew Badalla will be there, so shout out to him. I'm sure he'll be in attendance for that program, and I'm looking forward to it. Saturday night, next week, 1 week away, and we will have predictions in full for Full Gear next week here on The Juice Box. That's all I have in regards to AEW. Let's discuss the WWE of it all, but before we get into that, I do want to mention we had a TNA championship change. The world title changed hands. Mike Santana loses it to Frankie Kazarian. The taping and everything took place at Full Sail University, and NXT was all throughout the show, and they kind of were involved in how the match ended. And Mike Santana loses the championship only a month, if that, since winning it. and kind of was not seen, going into the latest tapings. And TNA put that out there, and even though they did, it was deemed it was actually a work, and Mike Santana was actually going to show up, and he wasn't having legit heat with anybody. All of that is insane considering where we're at now with what we know, and we know everything's a work, and like the nature of worked shoots is, I think, an outdated concept in 2025. But, he loses the championship, and I think he's going to, Santana is going to, go out of his way to try to take out as many individuals from the NXT side of it, going forth, on his way potentially back to getting that championship. So we'll see what TNA does. It's not really that promising with, how things look. Seeing Mike Santana win, seeing how it built up, seeing the promo for him to get there, only for him to lose it like he did, seems, somewhat. People were saying LOL TNA, and I totally get that. But, depending on how things turn out, and if Santana can get the title, I'm open to it. But a lot of hoopla over that title change. Let's get into War Games. I do want to bring up the current War Games Survivor Series teams, as they are almost fully set, and then we'll talk about John Cena and the last week he's had and how this tournament is shaping up. But to close the show, the women's War Games match as of right now is Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Alexa Bliss, and 2 other competitors taking on Nia Jax, Lash Legend, the Kabuki Warriors of Asuka and Kairi Sane, and 1 more entrant. So who knows who that 5th member will be for the heels? Who knows who that 4th and 5th member will be for the baby faces for the women? Not sure if Tiffany Stratton will get involved or Jade Cargill. Kind of up in the air. I'm not really sure where that's going to, take place, but or what will happen if that match, if they don't have a match together, another one-on-one, like a rematch for the title. I wonder if they will be inserted into the War Games match. That remains to be seen. The men's War Games match, however, has CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, and the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, taking on The Vision, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre, and a 5th member. The CM Punk, Cody, and the Usos also don't have a 5th member. I'm thinking it's going to be Roman Reigns, and I'm going to say this now. I think Jey Uso is going to super kick Roman Reigns and turn heel. That's just my thought, if that's the case. I also think Cena, who is now the Intercontinental Champion, will not be in War Games. I think he will defend that championship at War Games Survivor Series against Dominic Mysterio in San Diego. I think that's a perfect utilization of all that, where you can get the title back on Dom in a way, in a dirty, conniving way. Who knows who could help him in that regard? Maybe it's the person who wins this tournament. We'll get there. But I think Survivor Series is shaping up to be a fun show. That'll be the week after Full Gear. And in regards to that tournament, we will close out today's show with that. The members of this tournament are almost all completely announced. We have 4 more matches remaining. The bracket isn't even set. There is no bracket. There's just matches that have happened and people that have advanced. But there has not been a bracket unveiled. I'm sure that once we get these final 8 wrestlers, we will get that full bracket of who's going to face who and where we're going to see those final matches take place. Because I'm curious if Survivor Series gets any of them at all. But we have Rusev defeating Damian Priest, Sheamus defeating Shinsuke Nakamura, Jey Uso defeating The Miz, and get ready for this, L.A. Knight defeating Zack Ryder this past Friday on SmackDown. That's right. Woo, woo, woo. Zack Ryder is reborn. Matt Cardona is only a TNA and NXT wrestler, king of the indies, the indie god, and Matt Cardona was not the guy who showed up on SmackDown. It was Zack Ryder First time in 5 years since that character has been portrayed in WWE programming since he was released. And damn, great pop, great moment. I think it's just a one-off. I think that it's just for merch. I don't think he signed a Legends deal, but I think he signed some sort of merch deal where he's already got shirts. Maybe he'll get an action figure out of this. But, Zack Ryder, one-off, at least for now. For this tournament, I think it makes a lot of sense, being Zack Ryder has a lot of history with John Cena. Matt Cardona does not. And I think it was a perfect utilization of Zack Ryder to put him in a match like this against a guy like LA Knight, who's getting similar buzz that Zack Ryder did back in the day, where the fans have an uproar and really want him, and the internet kind of takes over and really pushes a guy. And, LA Knight's kind of right in there at the moment. So I dig the kind of similarity there with those two guys. And Zack Ryder loses. LA Knight gets the win. But I would wager you might see Zack Ryder in the 2026 Royal Rumble. But I'll just keep it at that. The final 4 matches for this tournament: Penta versus Finn Balor, Carmelo Hayes versus Bronson Reed, Javon Evans versus Gunther, and Solo Sikoa versus a wrestler to be announced. I believe that match and the Javon Gunther match will take place at Madison Square Garden, and that I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. But this is Madison Square Garden. This is going to be one hell of a show. They're even naming it John Cena's Final Raw, and I just, I know that the odds are that Javon Evans will be not winning and Gunther will be winning, but in the spirit of ruthless aggression, wouldn't that be sick if Javon Evans could get that win over Gunther? Because at this point, without knowing who that 16th person, who I'm going to say it right now, I think it will be Joe Hendry. People assumed it could have been Joe Hendry this past week on SmackDown, but that was not to be. And of course, it was Zack Ryder. But now, leading with what's left, I think it's very possible that we could get Joe Hendry here at MSG for this opportunity. I'm not sure who wins, if it's him or Solo Sikoa, but wouldn't that be hilarious for Joe Hendry to get the win? But I could see Carmelo Hayes advancing. I could see Finn Balor advancing. I could see either Javon or Gunther advancing, and then who knows with Solo or the other guy, whoever that may be. But I think Sheamus is definitely an opportunity, whether the Intercontinental title's on the line or not, but he's a guy that's been, he won his first world title against John Cena at TLC 2009. I think LA Knight could be the next guy, and if he dethrones John Cena, I think that could be huge. So there's a lot to be played with here, and I don't know where. I'll be honest, I don't think WWE knows where they're going with this. I think that's why there's no bracket revealed. I think they want to get these 8 guys advanced and then kind of go, all right, well, we'll play with this and these opportunities, and we'll see where and who should face each other one-on-one, and we'll go from there. But a lot of intrigue, and I do want to mention this. It's also been announced that John Cena, in regards to having this show, he says that a bunch of, quote, dream matches will be featuring NXT talents taking on those on Raw and SmackDown. So really making it about the future of the company, as well as, having his final match. So I really love that. I don't know what that means. I don't know what, if Javon and Gunther have a great match and Javon gets the win, could we see a rematch? If Javon's not in the final, who knows? Are we going to see Trick Williams versus Carmelo Hayes to revamp that feud? I don't know. But I'm here for all of that. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that's exactly the goal of what John Cena wanted. So I think it makes the Saturday Night's Main Event even more intriguing, considering it's not just his final match. It's, celebrating the future, showcasing what NXT has, and doing it all under one umbrella, one arena for the betterment of the future of pro wrestling in WWE. So I think it's a really cool thing for CENA to do that. I know at least that's in story, but I'm sure he actually had a lot to do with that selection process. So Saturday night's main event, December 13th, 8 p.m., Washington, D.C. Really looking forward to watching that show. In addition to Full Gear next weekend, Survivor Series the weekend after that, and then, like I said, 2 weeks after that, we get CENA's final match, only on Peacock. But you can only hear this episode and all future episodes of the Juice Box anywhere you listen to podcasts, and those places would be juicysteen.podbean.com, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and if you listen to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via iTunes, please leave a rating and drop a review. If you are so inclined, it takes only a minute or two, and it does help the show grow. Follow me, as always, on Twitter, @JuicySteen. Argue with me about pro wrestling. Talk to me about WCW. Or don't follow me at all. No skin off my back. Follow me on Instagram, @JuicyWrestlingCloset, @JuicySteen on YouTube. So next week, we'll do the Full Gear Predictions show. It might just be me solo. I might have some other people come in. Who knows who's available next week, but it's always unique here on the Juice Box. And of course, Survivor Series, a couple of weeks away. We'll have the predictions for that in full before that program. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Blood and guts, everything, kind of coming together. Now we got pay-per-view weeks back to back before we get to CENA's final match. And then it's Rumble season. So a lot of stuff going on here to close out 2025 in the world of professional wrestling. And you can hear all about that and my thoughts on it as we move forward here in the Juice Box. So for me, I am Juice Springsteen. And until next time, please give a good listen and enjoy me and everybody every week right here on the Juice Box. That was the Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to the Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.